Hey, folks, welcome to episode two of the Every Day's a School Day podcast. This week, I have the pleasure of having one of the best coaches I have ever worked with. His name is Jaemin Frazer. He's a six-time author, TEDx speaker, coach, podcast host, and the founder of the Insecurity Project. Jaemin specializes in providing thought leadership for entrepreneurs, leaders, and business owners on the subject of eradicating hidden and unresolved insecurity, which we'll definitely get into. He's widely recognized as one of Australia's best life coaches and leading voice globally on the subject of personal insecurity. Jaemin also has a podcast, which I highly recommend, called Unhindered, which has just passed 300 episodes. And on those, what I love about those podcasts is you doing the live coaching sessions. You're in action. And I think they're really, really valuable. So welcome to the show, Jaemin. How is it in sunny Goulburn?
Yeah, it's a lovely day. Been out for a ride before dawn, and then I was feeling so good I had to go for a 10K run afterwards. So it's
Look out.
conditions are perfect. It's great.
So, mate, insecurity, it's a really sort of taboo subject, I suppose, mostly in the relationship world. Um, and it's like we've all heard it. She's insecure. He's insecure. I think we've all been through that stage of like crippling insecurity, especially in regards to relationships. But in working with you, it goes a lot deeper than that. Can you share more about how you sort of transitioned into the insecurity project? And yeah, tell me more about that. What's appealing about it to you?
Yeah, sure. So my background, I was a church pastor for 10 years, and it was something I felt very wholehearted about. I felt a sense of calling. So it was like it was bigger than me. So if you have a sense of calling, then some of the responsibility is taken out of the game, because it's like, well, God has asked me to do something, and so God will take care of all that's necessary for me to fulfill what I'm supposed to do. I felt that I was good at it. I was well liked. I had a level of respect. Uh, so it was a safe, known, comfortable world for me that I excelled at, and yet there were some unanswered questions for me, specifically around transformation, I think, because, faith, there's a lot of conversations about transformation. It's about leaving the old life behind, the sinful life, the bad life, the life where you're lost and broken, and through faith in God, putting your life together again, turning your life around, starting life again. And so people are looking for a better version of themselves, and their hope for change is that God will do that for them. And so as a pastor, I was always invited into people's world to have conversations about change. And it was an honor to do that, but I was always frustrated at those conversations because they never really led to change. And I'd have the same conversations with the same people about the same thing year in, year out. And the hope was that people were waiting for a miracle, that God was going to intervene in their marriage, God was going to intervene in their business, God was going to do a miracle with their children, God was going to fix cancer and heal bones, and so this idea of self-awareness, of personal responsibility, personal growth, it always seemed like outside the rules. And so it was like, no, you can't, that's works, you don't do that stuff. You trust God. So it just, like, I'm a very pragmatic person. So I just thought, yeah, I understand that, but it doesn't work very well. In fact, it doesn't seem to work at all. If it works, great. I got no problem deconstructing something that works. But when something doesn't work, I go looking for why. And so that created an openness in me, I think, to be curious around psychology and human behavioral science. And then I had the guy who was mentoring me in the role of pastor, he had done some coach training, and I invited him to come do a spiritual retreat for our church folk. And I said, could you bring some coaching frameworks in as well? I like the idea of seeing how they could be relevant. And he just introduced a few simple coaching ideas, and it rocked my world. And I instantly knew I got to learn this stuff. This is a missing technology. And so I dived in boots and all, which is kind of how I do everything. When I've got to be wholehearted, and when I have a sense of heart about something, I tend to trust that, and I tend to go hard and deep quickly.
All in.
Because I'm a heart kind of person. If I get a sense of heart, that's a good sign. So go all in. And so 2 weeks later, I'd signed up to do a diploma in life coaching with the Coaching Institute in Melbourne, and I was away, and it just rocked my world. It was so revolutionary and exciting, and just the possibilities are endless. And so in that, I was learning so much, and it was expanding my horizons around what was possible. And I just got a sense that I think I was a really good pastor, but I think I could be an excellent coach. And I think I'd be able to be useful to a much wider segment of society if I was a coach, because it's not around the context. It's a judgment-free space, so it doesn't matter what someone's map of the world is. I could be useful anywhere. And so I followed my heart into that, and I thought, I think this is right. I think this is me. And I got so excited about that. I thought, I reckon I could even write some stuff around this. And I'd always dreamed of writing a book, but just thought that was beyond me. And so I remember walking home from, one of the first or second days of training in Melbourne as part of my diploma, getting all jacked up on Mountain Dew coming out of this class. And I called my best friend and my wife, and I said, look, I'm going to write a book. This is what it's called. This is what it's going to be about. I'm in, and I can see it. And I'm so excited. I just wanted to share this news with you. I'm committing to it. And so I went back to my hotel room, and I wrote the first chapter of my first book. And I was so excited and so aligned. And then the moment I shut the lid on that laptop, all that energy and excitement turned to fear. It was like, holy shit, what have I done? Like, who am I? What am I going to do again? Write a book about something that I don't even know anything about. I'm not a pastor anymore. I'm a nobody in this world. I have no respect, no runs on the board, no audience, and I'm going to write a book. And so I uncovered this mountain of insecurity in my own life that I didn't even know was there, because I hadn't bumped my head on it. I hadn't ventured beyond the walls of what was safe. And so it rocked me. I didn't sleep all night. It was terrifying. And I woke up in the morning just thinking, is this a solvable problem? Like, I didn't even know it was there. What do you do with insecurity? How does insecurity work? And thankfully I was in the coaching environment, and so they were talking about transformation and limiting beliefs, so it helped me pursue my curiosity. But my own experience was so debilitating, and I thought, boy, if someone wouldn't solve this problem, there's only one other option. You have to retreat. You have to run and hide. You have to cover and compensate. That seems like it would be exhausting. So if I want to venture forward into destiny and contribution, I got to work out what can be done about insecurity. And so that began a quest for me to go and work out, had anyone already solved this problem? I think that's a smart place to start. Rather than recreating the wheel, go work out what already exists. And I found that there were plenty of people who had found a way to free themselves from insecurity and live a life that was unhindered. I just couldn't see anyone that had made a map, that anyone had shown the path. And so I kind of reverse engineered it. I was just so curious. How did you do it? And in some places, people didn't even know. But what I discovered was that in every case, whether they were aware of it or not, there were 7 practices that made all the difference. And it was incredible to me, so exciting, because I thought, wow, if that's what worked for them, well, then it doesn't seem like a special problem. It seems like a universal one. So if these same practices could be applied to me, I reckon it would work for me. And it did. And then I was kind of ruined for anything else, because I thought, I think people suffer greatly for not knowing this is a solvable problem. I've stumbled across the fact that it is solvable through my own experience. So I've always been interested in transformation, and I think that's going to have to be a conversation about insecurity at somewhere along the line. It was kind of I had to then, and then I was never explicit about that. I was just coaching, and then I was like, I may as well just go all in on this as well. And so I put a flag in the ground against the advice of my business coach at the time, who said, there's no way it'll work. People are insecure about being insecure. It's a vulnerable subject. But I just thought, I may as well just speak intelligently and consistently about this one subject and devote my life to that. So, all right, the Insecurity Project, that's what I'm going to do, and that's all I'm going to do. And that was 6 or 7 years ago, and I've stayed in my lane ever since.
Awesome. And see the word insecurity. Like I was just thinking of you going home after the coaching institute and starting to write that book, and then closing the laptop, and then freaking out.
Mm.
Like for me, I would have said I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So does that fall under, like, what's your definition of insecurity, and how does it relate to that I'm not good enough belief that most of us have at some stage in our life?
Yeah, sure. So it's all variations on a theme. It is about inadequacy. So not good enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, not pretty enough, not something enough. Definitely. But I think in all my experience with people, there are some specific not enoughness if you get close enough. So not enough. What do you mean? In what area specifically are you not enough? So when I think about understanding insecurity, I love precision. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. He says, be precise in your speech, because things that go unnamed become monsters that consume you. And so when I watch people talk about fear or insecurity, it's often very abstract. It's messy, it's mysterious, it's untouchable, it's big, and it keeps getting bigger. And so what do you mean? What are you actually running and hiding from? What are you afraid of? They're all very, very good questions. Yoda says, named must your fear be, before banish it you can. So, okay, you got to see what it is. So it turns out that the simplest and only definition of insecurity is we are most afraid of our own worst opinion of ourselves. We think we're afraid of what you think of me and what you think of me, and think we're afraid of failing or being rejected, but it's never that. It's always the personal implications of those things. If I was to fail, what does that reveal about me? What can you see about me that you couldn't see before? And if I was to be rejected, what's true about me now that's evident for everyone to see? It's now personal. You're now vulnerable. You're now exposed. So we are afraid that our worst fear of ourselves, our worst opinion of ourselves, will be confirmed by the world. And that's a very specific and precise thing, but a very solvable problem, because if the fear's in here and it's in our own estimation of ourselves, well then, and it's never been reviewed, well then some simple review always reveals that it's a work of fiction and built on some painful experiences in your past that you haven't wanted to think about. So just to reiterate, insecurity, you are afraid that your worst opinion of yourself would be confirmed by the world.
So that's where most people would think it's the opinion of others.
Of course, it looks like that. Yep.
They haven't linked that it's, first of all, you made an opinion about yourself, and then you think everyone else's opinion is kind of the same. And then we don't, that's why, like what you're saying about reviewing what the opinion was that you made up about yourself is so important. And that's the gold in what you do, because we think it's outside. We think it's them, it's her, it's him, it's mum or dad or blah, 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 and what they think. But ultimately it comes back to what you think about you and where that came from.
And this is why people have so much angst around this stuff. Like I say this all the time, but most of my day is spent coaxing scared kittens out from under the lounge with a saucer of milk. Like the level of fear and angst around this kind of work, it's epic. And I think it's the human condition. We want to be good. We want to be seen as good. We're just afraid that if we were laid bare, there'd be evidence of something bad, something broken, something inadequate. And so for fear of that ever being confirmed, we run or we hide. And so to turn and face it and have a look instead is so counterintuitive. But back to this idea of naming it appropriately, that's the way in, because I'm a coach and I get challenged by people all the time to say, all right, Jaemin, you are not a therapist. So surely you must have to be careful in terms of what things you are dealing with in people's past. You're not qualified to handle abuse. You're not qualified to handle trauma. How could you possibly take a person back into that with any confidence? And I'm incredibly confident. I am not arrogant. I would not treat people, their very life, in a way that was careless. But the thing that gives me my utmost confidence to go back there is it is not the things that has happened to a person that has created insecurity. It is when things have happened, the person experiencing them has to decide what they mean and why they're happening. And it's off the back of that storytelling that the opinions are formed. That is the basis for insecurity. So all I am doing as coach is shedding some light on the opinion forming process of a scared child. That's
Can you
safe.
can you give us an example, just like a typical example of an opinion that someone you've worked with has formed about themselves that was developed in childhood?
Okay, sure. So some like people are not normally aware of this stuff off the bat. What they're aware of firstly is dysfunction and pain.
Yeah.
And that's
So they
people
maybe
call me sorry.
they maybe come to you and say, I want to stop drinking.
Exactly right. Yeah, there's a problem they've tried to fix, they can't. Or this. So this particular client said, like my life is out of control. I am a workaholic. I'm always busy. I don't know how to say no. I can never rest, and it's ruining my marriage. Never see my kids. So like I don't know what to do about that. I've tried everything, and I can't seem to break this. Great. So I'm going. My curiosity is so. What must you believe about yourself in order to behave this way? What are you afraid of? What's driving you to never stop? And they're hard questions, but some clean space and some review reveal that he's afraid of being lazy. Like he's just, I'm afraid that if I'm not working, I'll be seen as lazy. Oh, okay, that's fascinating. Where'd that come from? He says, well, I don't know exactly, but it was a big feature of my childhood that my dad would constantly drive me to do more. And I remember him frequently throughout my childhood calling me lazy. And so that really hurt. And he's a workaholic. He's driven. He never rests. I think I just kind of copied him, and that's where we are now. No, you didn't just copy him. That's not the mechanics of what happened. When he said those words to you, and he discovered that a key moment was he was 3 or 4. He was playing with Lego in his bedroom, relaxed, having a lot of fun. And his dad comes in and just blows up at him and like, I told you to clean this room yesterday. You are a lazy little so-and-so. And this kid's like, oh, wait, I didn't know there was a problem with me, but my dad is so upset with me. And he's calling me this lazy word, and he's very upset about it. And then in the context of his day, so this is 40 years ago, so you got to think about the Protestant work ethic 40 years ago. You think about if someone's lazy, that's almost one of the worst things you could be called. If you're lazy, like you're good for nothing. And not only that, you're taking value away. So caught up in this word lazy is you're bad, like you're worthless, you're a problem. You're a waste of oxygen. So all of this deep fear around, oh my goodness, I am no good. And coupled with that, like I love Don Miguel Ruiz's work. He says, you got to know that it's not the words spoken to you that change your life. It's just the ones that you agree with. And so, you're not the actor in the story. You're the storyteller. You've got the pen. So, so for this guy, when his dad's burst in and said, you're a lazy so-and-so, he's assessed the situation and gone, I didn't know that, but clearly it's true. I agree. I am lazy and therefore I am bad and I am worthless. So now I have to make sure no one else knows that about me. I'll be the hardest working person that anyone knows. They'll never see me rest. And by my hard work, people will know that I am good. So And then he's always fearing that this person doesn't think I'm working hard enough, and this person thinks I should be doing more, and constantly thinks the fear's out there. But in reality, the fear is he decided in his childish wisdom at 3 years of age that there was a problem with him, and he's been running and hiding from that assessment ever since.
Yeah. It's a heavy responsibility for someone to hear that it's actually they created the story and it's their opinion of themselves. But another side of that coin is it's so empowering for them if they want to do something about it.
Well, you're exactly right. It's brutal. It's horrible. Like if being a victim was all terrible, no one would ever do it. Like it's
Yeah.
wonderful to have someone to blame or some reason why you are the way you are. That's not your fault. If it's your responsibility, you created this. There's nowhere to hide. But if it is you that created it, well, then you are the only one who can change it. So as soon as you're ready, if you've had the pen this whole time, okay, well then change your mind. Go back and create a different story. Yeah, disagree with what you agreed upon, and decide who you want to be instead.
And it's not just as easy as making up an affirmation and chanting in the mirror every morning, is it?
Well, no, unfortunately. Not that that's not fun or doesn't feel nice, but I think the real challenge is all out. Like if you agree that you're lazy and therefore bad and worthless at 3, and that's a really catastrophic moment, then from that moment, you must direct all your best energy into creating a persona who's not that, so that everybody is fooled, so that no one would even guess that there's a problem with you. So that's your best energy. That's day and night. And that's firstly a conscious thing, and then it becomes unconscious. So it's every part of your world is governed by this accusation you made when you were a kid. And you think a couple of nice affirmations on your mirror, in the morning is going to override 40 years of repetition around the fact that you're a piece of shit. That's not how it works. You have to deconstruct the old story first, and you have to deconstruct it back to the very beginning, because there's no point trying to wade through all the years of confirmation bias. It's too much data. There's only one bit of data that pulls this apart, and that's back to the bedroom, back to playing with Lego. Dad comes in. That's the only conversation that is going to change your life, that very first one.
Yeah. Can you then talk us through those 7 steps that
Sure.
from your program? Then it gives the audience an idea of how it actually works and over what period of time it can work.
Yeah, sure. So I like Einstein's idea. You make things as simple as possible, but no simpler. So this is simple and hard, but not complicated and unique as most people imagine. It's a big moment when you realize you're not special, and insecurity is universal. Nobody escapes their childhood without developing limiting beliefs about themselves, which means if you're a parent, you won't protect your child from picking up limiting beliefs either. So do the best you can and get them a coach when they're 21. So the 7, and we've kind of touched on some of this already, but just to make it really explicit, practice 1. The only way into this process is to step into the light. And that means a few things, but primarily most people are running and hiding. And so it's a big deal to stop running and hiding and to say, do you know what? Although I'm insecure about being insecure, I am insecure. I am afraid. And like that's a big deal.
Owning it.
Owning it, absolutely. So let's have a look at this thing. So then stepping into the light, it's like, okay, well, if I'm not running and hiding, what is it that I am afraid of? And in every case, you will be surprised, because you will think it's a monster, and you will think it's too big for you, and you will think it's outside of you. That is the only thing that can happen if you live 30 or 40 years of your life without looking at it. It will become a monster. So it's a big deal to stop running and hiding, and people only do that because they're in pain. Otherwise, why would you? But that's the only way in. And then as we've done, to define it. So you're not afraid of failing. You're not afraid of being rejected. You're not afraid of what he thinks of you or she thinks of you. You are afraid that what you think about you will be confirmed. That's what you've always been afraid of. And there's evidence of that through your whole life. Your behavior does not lie. It proves what you really believe. And sorry to cut you off.
Sorry, that was step 2. Yeah, define it.
Oh, no, that's still step 1, is
Oh,
naming the
still step 1.
fear.
Sorry.
Still turn the lights and see this thing. You don't have to change anything yet. You don't have to fight the monster. Just what is this monster called? What is the thing? Useful to distinguish too that if you're a parent, you will have done this practice with your child without knowing. At some point or other, a child's going to come into your room at night, afraid of something in their room. Mum, there's a monster under the bed. There's someone behind the curtain. There's a thing in the cupboard. I can hear the noise. I know there's something there. And you as a parent know that they're not actually afraid of the monster because there is no monster. So if they're not afraid of the monster, then they can only be afraid of the thought of the monster. And that's your whole strategy with them. Because if you thought there was a monster too, you wouldn't be taking them back into their room to have a look. You know that they think there's a monster and that thought has taken over and become a fact for them. But if you can turn the light on and have a look, then there will be no monster. And so that's a big part of insecurity. You're not afraid of not being enough. You are afraid of the thought that you are not enough. Like you've never actually confirmed the data. That's gold right there. You're not afraid of being worthless. You're afraid of the opinion that you're worthless. You're afraid of the assumption that you're stupid. Like it hasn't been confirmed yet. You think it has, but it's just your confirmation bias. So that dials down the angst immediately. Then practice 2 is to go, and who created this idea, this opinion, this assumption, this accusation in the first place? And you're like, oh yeah, it was my dad because my dad said I was lazy. Or when I was in year 1, the teacher said, Timmy, you're stupid. That changed my life. Or do you know what? My dad, when I finished playing soccer and I scored a goal, he wasn't even watching, and we're in the car on the way home, and all he could tell me was what I was no good at. Couldn't even find the good thing. So that was my dad who changed my opinion. Practice 2 is, no, that's not true. That's never been true. That's misdirection. And I think misdirection is such a powerful bit of psychology. When the kids were young, I had this, I still do in my drawer actually. It's I got this latex thumb, a false thumb, and I can hide a little red cloth up inside it. And when the kids were young, I could make this cloth appear and disappear seemingly out of thin air just by misdirecting them. The trick is have them pay attention to my right hand, assuming that's where all the action's taking place, and make sure they're not watching my left hand where all the action really is taking place. So I would have done this trick 100 times for my kids and their friends when they came over, until one day my daughter was standing behind me and watching me rather than the trick. And then it was obvious. She's like, Dad, what's that on your thumb? And it's like an inch too long. It's the wrong color. It looks hideous. How anyone could be fooled by that is a mystery. And that's the trick of magic. And so as soon as she'd seen the thumb, I could never do the trick ever again. And that's this responsibility piece. You've been blaming your experiences. You've been pointing the finger at what happened to you, thinking that's where the action took place, when in fact it did not take place there. It took place in your sense making, in your storytelling. It took place at the end of this pen that you've had. Why did this happen? What does it mean about me? The answer that you wrote down, that's where all the action's taking place. So therefore you were at the heart of that action, confronting but empowering, because if you created this idea, well, then you can change it.
Powerful.
And if you look up opinion in the dictionary, it says the lowest form of knowing anything. So Your insecurity is based on the opinion of a scared, upset, embarrassed child. An opinion. And you've just lived as though that opinion is true, but it's just an opinion. No one else in the world agrees with that opinion. That's the fun of this. If you heard anyone else's origin story about the thing they decided was wrong with them because this happened, you're like, yeah, but that wasn't about you, don't you? No, it was about me. No, I was there. Yeah, but like clearly, that this person was upset and this person was insecure and they were going through some stuff and they brought that on you. That wasn't about you. You do know that, don't you? So it's so easy to see for every other person except yourself.
And it's logical, isn't it?
Practice
it's like, as an adult, we have this logical looking back. Oh yeah, yeah. I understand why that kid made that assumption, but it doesn't stop there. Like you're having that logical awareness as an adult doesn't help the kid
Well,
and that
that's
belief that came
exactly right.
through.
So, and we'll get to that very point. Thank you for raising that. Because these early stages are just creating psychological safety to do the work. Because there's so much angst and fear and it's too big and it's a monster. So it's like, no, don't change anything yet. We're just having a look. It's a reconnaissance mission. Before you go to war, what is the battle? What's the size of the enemy? What are your resources? What's your strategy? That's all you're doing. And every time you look and get closer to it, the problem gets smaller and more manageable. So practice 1, tell the truth around what you're afraid of. And it's in here, not out there. Practice 2, take responsibility for creating that fear through an idea, an assumption, an opinion, an accusation. Yourself, you did that. Practice 3 is to stack the pain, which is just a useful bit of psychology around using pain for you rather than against you. So typically people link pain to self-awareness, pain to review, pain to going back into their childhood. And so whatever you link pain to, you naturally avoid. But you can alter your pain associations by what you pay attention to. So if you were to do an accurate cost assessment for what the impact of unresolved insecurity is on your marriage, on your business, on your health, on your parenting, like it wouldn't be pretty. It'd be horrific if you tell the truth. It's ruining your life and it gets worse. You have a look at someone who was 70, who has not found a way out of their insecurity. You are not talking to a human being. Their insecurity has so weakened them that all their best energy directed to prove and defend themselves their whole life, they are scattered, they're fragmented, they're anxious, like everything is a threat. There's no peace in their world. It's catastrophic. So, yeah, that's where it ends up for every human if you don't fix this. So you tell the truth around how much it's costing you now and how much it's going to continue to cost you. You massively increase the pain on being here. So then whatever is involved in going back into your childhood and reviewing these painful memories is now less painful than not reviewing them. It's how anyone quits smoking. Just because something is killing you does not mean you have to pay attention to the fact it's killing you. So people smoke because they don't do a cost assessment. People quit when they do a cost assessment. They just tell the truth. How much is this costing me financially? How is this impacting my health? What are the future impacts of my health? And they just run the data and they go, holy shit, this is a disaster. And they build such a pain case. Now every cell in their body links smoking to pain. And therefore whatever is involved in quitting is now less painful than continuing. And then they're done. So that's an essential part. Anyone who has ever solved insecurity has done so from a place of pain that comes from telling the truth about the cost.
Awesome.
But it is only half the motivation cycle, because if you've ever experienced just doing something to get out of pain, well, you get a huge amount of motivation to get out of pain. But as soon as the pain dies down, as soon as you start seeing fruit and results and rewards, well, then because the pain's dying down, so is the motivation. People lose weight like this. I was talking to a gym owner and they said people typically come in wanting to lose 10 kilos. They lose 5 kilos and start feeling great. Then there's less pain. They're getting, more positive affirmation. People are telling them they look great. And so there's no pain anymore. And so therefore no motivation. And so what's the point of continuing? And then 6 months later, they're back doing the same thing again and again and again. So if you're just trying to get out of pain, you won't fully solve this problem. You just do enough so that it's manageable again. So practice 4 is develop a compelling vision for your life. So that's the other side. What are you moving away from, but what are you moving toward instead? What is the dream for your life? What is the ultimate reason you would want to be free to be you? What is inside you? What will go unrealized if you never resolve this? The 5 regrets of the dying are people who have the music still inside them when they're at the end. Those dreams, it's too late. They're not going to see them happen. And so that idea of telling the truth about what you want, even though it's hard, even though could be embarrassing, even though it's risky. It's still the truth. To desire is human. It's always inside you. When people tell me they don't know what they want, I never believe them. All I'm hearing is, it's just you're just scared. But that's okay. It's still there, and until you are willing to tell the truth, then what's the point of doing all this hard review work if it's not getting you more of what you want? And then practice 5, which kind of sits over all of them, is to get help from someone who doesn't care about you, which is probably one of the more controversial ones, but it definitely belongs because you'd think you'd need someone who's going to put air in your tires or wind up your skirt or, give you some love and support. I believe in you. I know who you are. You're
You
okay.
can do it.
But this is a problem that comes from not understanding what you're dealing with in the first place. Because if you think the fear's out there, you think I'm insecure because people don't like me, because people reject me, because people accuse me, then you think you'll solve this by finding people who love you, who'll support you, who'll encourage you. But if insecurity could have been solved by a nice person saying encouraging words, your mum or your grandma would have fixed this 40 years ago. Like it's not their opinion, it's your opinion. And so no one's coming to save you. So this practice 5 is really key because you're going to need help. And if you think about this as the hero's journey, which it really is, you are doing something very heroic and you are on a quest to go fight a dragon. The dragon is inside you. The hero's always got to do the thing they're most afraid of. There's a lot at stake. The hero always finds a wisdom character. There's always a Gandalf, a Yoda, a Dumbledore, a Mr. Miyagi. And if you look closely around the patterning of those characters, at the beginning of the story, you think they're the hero. Your confidence is in them because the real hero is still such a weakling. You got, Danielson, you've got Frodo in the Shire, you've got Harry Potter beginning. But the job of the wisdom character is to equip and prepare the hero to show them the path and then to get out of the way. Because Dumbledore's dead, Gandalf's gone, Mr. Miyagi's not the one beating the bully. It's got to be the hero. So it's really important to understand that you're going to need help, but help from someone who's not going to get in the way, someone who's not going to rescue you, which is hard to find because I think a lot of people go into the therapy space, A, to avoid doing their own therapy, and B, because they get a hit out of rescuing. It's nice to be needed. It's nice to be the one with the advice. It's nice to help people because then you're a good person. All the while you weaken the hero and confuse people about what's going on. So,
the emotional detachment is key, isn't it?
It really is. And I think probably the most important reason why you got to get help from someone who doesn't care about you is that it's very hard to tell the truth, especially when you're afraid that the truth will implicate you. I can't afford to turn the lights on because then you'll see who I am. And if you see who I am, then my worst fear about myself will be confirmed. So if someone's getting close to the core, well, then you're very, very nervous about what the truth will reveal. And so when I get the privilege of coaching someone, I say, look, I know I look like someone who cares, but you can't confuse me for someone who gives a shit about you. Like, I won't lose sleep over you. I'll forget about your name. Like, I'll forget your kids' names. I'm not holding you accountable. I'm not another person who wants you to do something you don't want to do. I don't care. It's not my problem. I've already solved this problem in my life. I know how to solve it. So, but if you tell me what you want, I'll give you everything I've got to get you more of that. But you've got to want it. Because me wanting it for you, it's going to feel nice, but I'll get in the way. And then I'll make it too dangerous to tell the truth because you'll realize you can disappoint me. If you can please me, you can disappoint me. And so then all of a sudden you're going to give me the right answer. You've had a tough week, but you can't afford to tell me that because then I might feel like you're failing and then I can't have that. So, but if I don't care, then it doesn't matter whether you should be here or shouldn't be here. It's just always, what do you want again? Oh, cool. And what are you prepared to do about it? Excellent. Okay. Well, then let's have the conversation. So it's incredible how quickly you get to the core conversation when the space is clean.
Yeah, it's massive.
I don't think you can find any other way to resolve this because there's so much angst and these memories are so hidden and so charged emotionally. You can't do it with someone who has a vested interest in your life. It just gets too icky.
Yeah.
So then we move on to practice 6 because then eventually the wisdom character has done their work and you're still got to go fight the dragon. And that specifically, to allude to what you said before, is you can't rescue the child from a distance. You can't just conceptualize this as an adult and go, oh, yeah, okay, yep, sure, a mistake was made. Let's just move on. You've got a wounded child still back in a bedroom, feeling lazy, bad, worthless. If you don't go back to that child and actually empathize with their plight, and worse, like you've got to realize that you betrayed that child, really, because when you had that experience and decided I'm lazy, bad, worthless, it was like you separated from yourself then. Now it's the ideal me talking down to the real me, going, well, you're a problem. Don't be you ever again. Like, I got to be better than you. I got to be different than you. I got to be other than you. And so then your whole life is distancing yourself from yourself. That's an act of real betrayal. So you're going to go back. You're going to have to get your hands dirty. You're going to have to dive into the depths of that pain that you've created and sort that out and apologize and genuinely change your mind and understand the difficulty that's been. Like you've always thought you were the victim, but in fact, you're the bully. You've pointed to the negative words people have said about you, but you've said the worst things to you, and then you've confirmed those things, agreed with them, and doubled down on them. So there's some work to do as the hero to go and actually face the thing you're afraid of and fully review that data and discover the truth about who you really are. And that's scary because you think you'll find evidence. There's always evidence that I am lazy, or I am bad, or I am worthless. I just know it. Well, there's only one way to find out. You're going to go back to the beginning, which is what the hero does, right? They've got to do the thing eventually, and there's no going back. They've come too far, so they kind of resolve themselves to the fact that they either die or they come out the other side reborn. And it sounds dramatic, but there's no other way about it. You're going to have to go back, and sure, if that kid got it right, or you die. It's true. You are a piece of shit. You've always been shit. But if you go back and a mistake was made, a misunderstanding had happened, and you apologise for your involvement in that and agree to never betray yourself again, well, you are free from that narrative. It doesn't exist anymore. It's not true. The game is up. You are able then to move to practice 7, which is to write a new story. You're able to go, that is not who I am. That's never been who I am. Now you're free to see who you've always been and create a story in line with that, a story that enables you to go into the world with nothing to prove and nothing to defend and really show up as the wonder of you, live out of your essence. So,
and now we get more merit.
Now
we get more merit from the affirmations at this stage.
And now the affirmations work, you're right, because then there is a period of reinforcing that. And I think, 2 or 3 weeks having deconstructed the old story, come out the other side, because it's going to need to be pressure tested, right? It's one thing to be alone in your bedroom having these conversations with yourself, but you're going out into the real world, the world that you've constantly trained to teach. You've trained them to treat you a certain way. You've shown up as a certain person. So they don't know anything's changed. So sure, people are still going to hurt you. People are still going to misunderstand you. People are still going to be difficult. And under pressure, what are you going to do? Are you going to go back to thinking, oh, it is true, I am no good? Or can you handle that? Can you come back and go, no, I know who I am. And I am sure, even under pressure, it wouldn't matter what happens. I've got the pen. I've always had the pen, and I have changed my mind about what is true. And I will never betray myself again. 2 or 3 weeks of pressure testing around that, that's locked and loaded now. That is an upgraded story. That narrative is no longer there.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't happen overnight, but all these things are binary at the same time. Like I like the idea that change may take a long time coming, but it happens in a moment. So they're all like clear lines in the sand. Do you accurately understand the fear? Well, kind of. No. what is it exactly, precisely you are afraid of? That's it. That's a clear line in the sand. Who created this here? Well, it was kind of my dad and no. Who did it? I did it. Like, that's a very precise answer. Are you done with this yet? Well, kind of. I mean, it's pretty well. Yes or no? Like, have you finished with this story yet? Yeah, I'm done. I can't be this person anymore. Great. Do you know what you want instead? I mean, kind of. No, like, what's the truth about the desire of your heart? That's a very clear answer. Have you found someone who can hold a clean space without imposing what they want for you? Yes or no? Are you ready to go back into that and actually empathize with that child, to go back and open all the files and look everywhere? Yes or no? And have you changed your mind about that opinion? Yes or no? So they're all processed, but they're all very much line in the sand stuff. You can't hedge your bets. It's all, very walking through a clear door and closing another door behind you.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of people would say the majority of adults are just kids running about in adult bodies currently. It's because that disconnect, they haven't. Right.
No, they haven't done that. And I, that's what I'm dealing with people who are physically adults who have not done the central adult work, which is to free themselves from insecurity. I'm convinced that's what it means to be an adult, to use your best skills, your objectivity, your intelligence, your care, your compassion on yourself, all the way back to the beginning, and to use your storytelling, your sense making with skill, not to continue childish stories that have gone unreviewed and are weakening you to the point of madness.
Yeah. I went through that process with you, Jaemin, and it was heavily confronting, especially whenever I thought I had done a lot of work on myself. And it's never ending. Like, you'll get to another stage whenever something else comes up. Okay, there's something around this that you have to go and investigate as well.
It's a really important distinction. So, people ask me, all right, Jaemin, you're the insecurity guy, so are you insecure? And I say, no, not at all. And they're like, really? Yeah, no, this is a solvable problem. And your job is to completely solve it at your current level of growth. But then when you do that, because you're now comfortable, relaxed, you will take new territory. You'll say yes to things previously you said no to. You'll follow your heart beyond your comfort zone. And therefore, you will face new uncertainty and you will bang your head on the next insecurity. I just worked out I'm good enough for this, but am I good enough for that? I just worked out I could work with this kind of person, but could I work with that kind of person? I could earn this kind of money, but could I earn that kind of money? And so the same 7 practices that set you free at the last level of insecurity work again at the next level. So I love really pinpointing for clients that when they experience insecurity, again, it's not regression, it's progress. Cool. This is a more subtle story. This is one further down the line. This is one you couldn't see before because a worse, bigger one was in the way. Now that's out of the way. You can see this, and on, and more subtle it goes. But your job is to keep upgrading the quality of your story.
And you're
telling
equipped.
Truer. Sorry.
And you're equipped to do it again.
And you're equipped to do that. One of my clients said the other day words that I just thought were so profound, and I've taken on board, and that is, you are the storyteller, but what you are writing a story about is actually indescribable. So of course, the story is always a work in progress. So who am I at my core? What does it mean to be me? That's a very big question and a very difficult question to answer, because I am life itself, really. Like, I am the cosmos. I am God. I am energy. I am love. Like, all of those things are essentially what it means to be alive. And so to quantify that, to tell stories about that, it's always a work in progress. And I love that. So my job is to keep telling better, more beautiful, more empowering stories about the wonder of what it means to be me, and knowing that I'm not actually me. Like, I'm not Jaemin. Jaemin still is a construct. Jaemin is a story about what it means to be me. That's a name given to me by my parents that isn't actually me. It's described something that they wanted for me and something about them. But who am I? Well, I don't know. I'll have to go look and I'll discover things along the way. But I know I'm not the opinions and accusations and assumptions that I thought I was. So yeah, this work in progress, but still off the back of solving the problem at each level of growth that you're at.
Yeah, massive. James, so you've wrote 6 books. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is.
How did you go about? Like, whenever I think of writing a book, it freaks me out in the sense of, where do you start with a book? I know at the beginning, but it's such an overwhelming. Like, you think, oh, I'm not an author. Like, again, it's an opinion and a story about myself. But was that something that you'd always sort of plan for yourself? Like, did you always know that you're going to be an author, or was this something that just came out of the Coaching Institute?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought about it. I love reading books, and so I thought, imagine what it'd be like to be able to contribute to a library, to have written something sitting on someone's shelf one day, to have had something intelligent to say that someone else could find useful. I kind of thought, I'm more likely to make a difference with my thinking than with my hands. My dad's a very strong, practical farmer, fencer, builder. Like, he could do anything. He's got a solution physically. I think my skills are much more in how I think, and the ideology and processing. So I thought, well, if I met my essence, me bringing my contribution, it's going to be thought leadership. So, but in terms of writing, I'm not a natural writer. I do not find it easy. It's not. I find speaking about concepts much easier than writing about them, because when you talk, you got a chance to. What I mean is, and can I say it like this? And well, let me tell you a story. But writing, you got one chance and one sentence and one word to get it right. And you could have chosen 100 different ways of describing it, but you have to pick one. And so it's hard. But if I think back to how have I written 6 books, I didn't really have this language at the time, but I think now the way that I would understand it is obvious action. So I'll explain that by so Hal Elrod wrote a book called The Miracle Equation, and he says people do wonderful things, miraculous, what appears to be miraculous things, by combination of 2 really essential components. Number 1 is unwavering faith. So they believe in themselves, they trust their ability, they have an idea about what they want, and they back themselves because they're going to do something special. So if they don't believe in themselves and they're hoping for someone else to give them permission or someone else to believe them, they'll be waiting for the rest of their life. So people who do meaningful things, they have a sense of their own motivation, their own ideology, their own belief, and they can't give up on themselves. They've got to be their own cheer squad. They have to be their own chief validator. They have to be all in on themselves. No option there. And then the second thing is they take extraordinary action. So what do you want? What are you prepared to do about it? And they just keep going all in, whether they see results or not. They just keep doing more extraordinary work and again and again and again until they get there. And so I really like that. And he tells all kinds of beautiful stories about what happens when those 2 things combine. But the more I've experienced that in my own life, I think extraordinary action is a misunderstanding. Obvious action is how it actually is. So if I actually believe in myself, if I genuinely have unwavering faith about who I am, it's not extraordinary action any longer. It's only extraordinary action if I don't really believe. It's just obvious action. It's just like, so if I believe I've got something useful to share, well then write the book. Yeah, but it's hard. Well, it doesn't really matter whether it's hard or easy, whether you're good at it or not good at it, whether people like it or not. The obvious thing to do is open your laptop and write some stuff. And you won't know how you do it. It'll feel impossible, and you won't know where to start or end. And other people tell you all kinds of things, but just do it anyway, and don't be too dramatic about it. And so, I think that's in every area of my life. This idea of obvious action is so useful because it does take the drama out of it, and my job is to come back to faith, back to trust, back to knowing who I am, back to living out of a beautiful story, and then being precedes doing. So if I'm being this kind of person, then what would I be doing? Great. Go do that thing then. And so I would never imagine that I wrote 6 books. I didn't have an ambition to. It wasn't a goal I set. It was just, bloody hell, I just have this way of thinking about relationships that I'm sure is a really high quality model. It's made the difference in my own marriage, been married 25 years. And I think this idea of how to keep the space clean between the person you love the most is very rare. I look around and I don't see any clean spaces. I see people start in a clean space when they fall in love and then something goes wrong and they don't know how to clean it and now they're in an arrangement. That has not been my experience. My experience is stuff goes down and we find our way back to a clean space. How did I do that? Well, it was with these ideas. Okay, do you think they're good ideas? I think they're really good ideas. Okay, well then you'll have to write about that. Oh man, really? Yeah, just go write it. That's be really hard. And it's going to be a really hard book to sell. It doesn't really matter. Go do the obvious thing that flows from that.
Yeah.
Same with insecurity. You've got a model and it is the best model around insecurity. Well then, okay, write about it. The latest book, I thought, oh man, I've touched on this subject so many times. That's okay. Like this one was different than all the others because, like when I was in Germany, the new one, the self-permission method. When I was in Germany on holidays, I thought I'd finished the manuscript. My plan was to submit it to New York agents with the aim of getting one of the big publishing houses in New York to pick it up. And so I was just about to submit it, but I had the holiday with my family in Europe for 3 weeks. I took it with me and I thought, I'll sit on it for a bit. And I woke up in the middle of the night when I was away and I felt compelled to email that manuscript to one of my friends in Melbourne because I realized that document only existed on my laptop. And if something were to happen to me, if the plane were to crash or someone was to steal my computer, then that thing doesn't ever see the light of day. And it was just this sense of, this is bigger than me. Like this is a model that is very important. This is part of ending unnecessary suffering. Not many people understand that you could relate to yourself in a way that's not brutal and harsh and self-discipline is a young person's game built on no self-awareness and it's very unkind, all built on the misunderstanding of insecurity. So self-permission is the upgrade. It's been a beautiful thing in my own life. I've written about it. But this is a very important piece. So make sure that it comes to the world, Jaemin. The obvious thing is. So it didn't feel extraordinary. I feel like I'm ruined for anything else. I have to write the book. Doesn't matter whether I've talked about these before. This is my duty to put this into the hands of people who could benefit from it. So I'll do my best job at it and get it out there. The audiobook, I hate recording audiobooks. It's the worst 2 days of my entire life. I'm already spent 12 months writing this book. I'm entirely sick of it. And I've got to read this book with enthusiasm and passion and energy, every sentence the same. All cooped up in a hot office so that it's all soundproof, sitting still so I'm not moving from the microphone. It's a nightmare, but we've got to do it. Like I don't really have a choice because not everyone's going to read it. So if it's a useful model, people need it. Well, you better get it in their hands on Audible. So do the obvious action, Jaemin, and get it done. So that was a long answer to your question about how do you write a book.
That's a good answer.
But that's how I think about it.
You've put me off, so thanks for that. So is the self-permission method book out yet, or when does it come out?
So officially 1st of March, but
what's today? The 23rd of Feb.
Yeah, right. So not long. But when you submit a book to Audible, they're very picky about audio quality, and there's lots of things, and so they can take up to 6 weeks or longer to have it up. So I was ahead of time to get it up, and they accepted it straight away. So
cool.
You can already get it on Audible.
Right, must get that today.
Ahead of schedule. Yeah, so it's out there, but officially the 1st of March.
Awesome.
Bunch of pre-orders in. So I'll have the paperback books by that date.
Brilliant. Awesome. So, Jaemin, if people want to find you, work with you, find your books, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, my parents gave me a gift of giving me a unique spelling name. As far as I can tell, I'm the only Jaemin Frazer in the world. I'm
Wow.
definitely not the only Jaemin. I Googled myself the other day and I shared the spelling of my name with a bunch of Korean pop stars. So Jaemin is
Right.
a popular Korean name. So, yes, if you can spell my name, Jaemin Frazer, Jaemin, Frazer with a Z, quite easy to find. My website is jaeminfrazer.com. I'm active on Instagram and LinkedIn. So, or you can find my podcast or one of the
Unhindered.
books on Audible, or plenty of ways people can find me. And like typically, people spend 3 years sussing me out before they're ready to do any work, which
Right.
is, and I think, life coaches, people are suspicious about life coaches, because there's no barrier to entry. So
I can
people
vouch
read my
for you.
stuff, they listen and they go, is this guy full of shit? No, it seems like it's working. And then they keep leaning in and keep leaning in. And then, so I think it makes sense to consume some content first and get a sense for, the substance that I'm bringing. But
Yep.
sometimes people are ready straight away.
Yep, builds trust. But I've worked with a lot of coaches, different practitioners in this area, and I can definitely say that you're number one. So highly recommend anybody to work with Jaemin. And you obviously work with people overseas, so anywhere in the world. So the beauty of the internet.
It is, and it's easier to be a global coach than a local one. That was a good day
Definitely
when I discovered that.
opens the market.
Certainly does. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Jaemin. And I'll definitely check out the self-permission method book on Audible and let you know how it goes.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Fee. Thanks for a lovely conversation.
No worries, mate. And we will speak soon.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Jaemin.